This May 1st, the world celebrates International Workers' Day in commemoration of the world labor movement, as well as the eternal struggle for their cause and rights. The Citizens' Revolution Movement of Ecuador denounces the obstruction of a new appeal against the results of the elections of April 13th. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in the occupied Palestinian areas reported an alarming 80% increase in the number of children being treated for malnutrition throughout the region. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We'll begin with the news. Stay with us. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro celebrates International Workers' Day with the Bolivarian people. President Nicolás Maduro addressed the people in the framework of the celebrations for the International Workers' Days. During his speech, the head of state condemned the coercive measures imposed by the government of the United States of America against the Bolivarian people. The president also denounced the kidnapping of the Venezuelan baby Michaelis Espinosa, who was forcibly separated from her parents when they were deported from the United States, and the more than 250 Venezuelans illegally held in the maximum security prison of the Terrorism Confinement Center in El Salvador.
They created a narrative from Venezuela: Leopoldo López, a thief; Juan Guaidó, Maria Machado, Julio Borges, Antonio Ledesma, Juan Pablo Guanapa. They are responsible for imposing a narrative by which the Venezuelan migrants who, due to the economic sanctions, have migrated to the United States, were criminals from the Tren de Aragua gang, and we have rescued thousands. One of them is the mother of our dear Marcelis. Her husband was sent in a brutal and unjust way to a concentration camp in El Salvador. He hasn't been able to contact any lawyer or judge. He hasn't committed any crime there.
And the Bolivarian president also condemned the false narrative of the country's far right to criminalize the Venezuelan migrant community and promote their persecution.
Desde las 10 de la mañana hasta esta hora.
From 10 o'clock in the morning until this hour, 5:20 in the afternoon of today, May 1st, 2025, we have seen this demonstration of love, of national union, of street strength. This is how the people of Venezuela have to make themselves respected by the criminal empire. Mobilized, united, in the street. We have to make ourselves respected. He who does not make himself respected is worthless. He who is capable of standing up with his truth, with his dignity, as a free man, as a free woman, in front of any empire, earns the respect of the world, the blessings of God, and has the right to victory in all the struggles he carries out.
During the event, the President of the National Assembly of Venezuela, Jorge Rodriguez, highlighted the role of the Venezuelan people in the defeat of the unilateral sanctions imposed by the United States government against the Bolivarian nation.
And at this point we can say that this people with its president defeated the blockade, and here is a thriving Venezuela that looks towards the future and towards prosperity.
In another part of his speech, Rodriguez accused Honduras, El Salvador's President Bukele, of kidnapping 253 Venezuelans in a Salvadoran prison and sentenced that the Venezuelan people and government will not rest until they are returned to Venezuela.
Those 253 young people in El Salvador are innocent. They have not committed any crime and they have been kidnapped by the criminal and murderer Nayib Bukele. And we will not rest, our noble people will not rest, the Bolivarian government will not rest. President Nicolas Maduro will not rest nor any of the good men and women of this country until the 253 Venezuelans kidnapped in El Salvador are returned to us.
Thousands of workers protested in the capitals of Peru and Ecuador on Thursday to demand better working rights on May Day. In Quito, the main trade union organizations marched with a clear objective, that of asking the recently re-elected President Noboa for a labor and pension reform that will give greater stability to the country's Social Security Institute. On the other hand, in the Peruvian capital Lima, a long column of demonstrators was heavily guarded by the national police. During the demonstration, the Peruvian trade union leaders denounced the existence of exploitation and even what they call slavery in the labor field.
We are here to tell the government that has won the elections that obviously the people are not going to give them a blank check. We are going to demand that they fulfill their campaign promises and that labor rights are respected.
In Peru, we mark International Workers' Day, where we ask every year for justice to be served. We say no to exploitation of labor and slavery, either in the public nor in the private sector, either in the countryside nor in the city. Today is a day of reflection but also of march and protest, so that the government knows and learns to respect the workers of the country.
In the city of Sao Paulo in Brazil, Workers' Day is being celebrated with a demonstration promoted by the unions as is tradition on May 1st. With special emphasis on the reduction of the working day 641, without salary reduction, activities will be held on the Paulista Avenue and in São Bernardo do Campo. In addition to income tax exemption, workers are demanding wage equality between men and women and a dignified retirement, together with public policies that guarantee greater access to health and job security. And meanwhile, in Greece, the citizens also mobilized to defend the struggles of the sector. They marched in several cities of the country to accompany and join the call of the trade union organizations and worker centers. The workers continue to demand, among other things, public policies that guarantee better working conditions in the face of the real estate crisis. Meanwhile, in France, the police repressed protesters mobilizing for International Workers' Day in Paris. Thousands were attending the rallies and demonstrations demanding from the Macron government stronger protections from workers, higher wages, and greater equality. The main workers' unions in France also marched in rejection of the advances of the extreme right and to criticize Trump's measures. Labor Day demonstrations happened against a backdrop of political instability in the country, where a parliamentary vote ousted the previous government in December, leaving the nation without a functioning government for weeks. And workers in the United States rallied Thursday against the policies of U.S. President Donald Trump during the International Workers' Day celebrations. The demonstrations were reported in key cities such as Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York, where workers raised their voices in defense of their labor and human rights. Migrants also reportedly joined the rallies to demand the respect of their labor rights regardless of their immigration status or country of origin. This year's demonstrations have a particular significance in the context of Washington's tough migration and trade policies.
You cannot mistreat the working class. That this country, this economy, the culture of the country is run by the working class, and in that working class, it includes immigrant workers as well.
The reason why we're here today amongst the other 90 organizations is really to uplift the plight of our immigrant workers here in Los Angeles and throughout the country.
I'm an American vet, and I swore an oath to protect our Constitution And our government right now, our federal government is not doing that. And so I'm teaching my son our civic duty to peaceful protest.
Now we have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Citizens' Revolution Movement of Ecuador denounces the obstruction of a new appeal against the results of the elections of April 13th. Attorney Francisco Estrellas denounced that the recourse of challenge was filed at the offices of the National Electoral Council on the night of this Wednesday, April 30th at 23:06 local time. However, he pointed out that the officials finished counting the minutes at 2:30 a.m. this Thursday, and at that time the receipt of the document was filed. This new claim is added to others already rejected by the plenary of the National Electoral Council, which declared the winner of the presidential elections to the current president, Daniel Noboa, of the National Democratic Action Movement. And on Wednesday, the U.S. Senate rejected a bipartisan bill to repeal President Donald Trump's tariffs. After a 49-49 deadlock on the resolution, Vice President J.D. Vance intervened, casting a decisive vote to maintain President Donald Trump's trade policies. Despite bipartisan support from Senators Rand Paul, Susan Collins, and Lisa Murkowski, along with the Democrats, the resolution failed to secure the necessary votes for adoption, largely due to the absence of Republican Senator Mitch McConnell, who was unwell. All the while, Trump has remained resolute in his tariff stance, asserting his readiness to veto any such resolution in defense of his trade policies. The United States government imposes new sanctions on 7 entities for trading in Iranian oil. In the midst of the negotiations on the nuclear agreement, Washington announces these illegal and illegitimate measures against 7 entities related to the trade of Iranian oil products. All this is part of the U.S. strategy to put pressure on Tehran in the middle of the talks. The State Department has announced that the sanctions target 4 sellers and 1 buyer of Iranian petrochemical products, as well as a maritime management company accused of managing Iran's energy supply. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum informed about the agreement to improve the trade balance between Mexico and the United States, confirming a call she had with Donald Trump. The head of state informed that the Secretaries of Finance and Treasury, as well as of Economy and Trade of both countries, will continue working on alternatives to improve the trade balance and advance in pending issues for mutual benefit. In this regard, Sheinbaum described the agreement as a good sign to achieve better trade. The Mexican government stressed that Trump's goal is to reduce the U.S. trade deficit with the Latin American country and increase imports from the U.S. economy. We now have our second and final break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final break, we're going to be right back with more. Welcome back. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in the occupied Palestinian areas reported an alarming 80% increase in the number of children being treated for malnutrition throughout the region. This escalating crisis is the result of Israel's continued blockade and closure of border crossings, which significantly hinders the distribution of essential goods. OSHA reported that 92% of infants aged 6 months to 2 years, as well as their mothers, do not meet the basic nutritional needs required, posing serious dangers to their long-term health. In addition, the report indicated that 65% of the inhabitants of Gaza lack access to safe drinking water, which further intensifies the already severe humanitarian crisis. The UN entity warned that the situation in the Gaza Strip has once again reached a critical point where people are running out of means to get by and the fragile gains made during the brief ceasefire have faded. And Qatar denounced before the UN's top court that Israel has created a humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. The fourth day of the ICJ hearings on Israel's obligations to the occupied Palestinian territories, Qatar's ambassador to the Netherlands, Mutlaq al-Qahtani, stressed that rather than ending its illegal presence in the occupied Palestinian territory, Israel has continued its genocidal war against the Palestinian people and increased settlement efforts in the occupied West Bank. Al-Qahtani pointed to Israel's blockade on aid shipments, its attack on the UN agency UNRWA, and its cuts to basic services in the enclave as key elements that violate its obligations under international law. New Zealand's weather agency Met Service reported service disruptions across the country on Thursday as a result of torrential rains, with severe winds gusting up to 150 kilometers per hour. The weather agency issued a red alert for high winds south of the capital city of Wellington, prompting the closure of schools and flight cancellations. The howling gales, the strongest in over a decade, have damaged roofs and downed trees, while massive waves pounded the city capital's coastline, dumping debris on roads and making driving dangerous. New Zealand's Fire and Emergency Agency said it had deployed units to 93 minor storm-related events and referred a further 66 to other entities. Authorities are urging residents to stay home and away from doors and windows. In another topic, thousands of Serbians commemorated Thursday the train station canopy crash that killed 16 people 6 months ago. Residents in the northern city of Novi Sad left flowers and lit candles outside the central station, where tons of concrete crashed on the people standing or sitting underneath last November 1st. The commemoration was part of the Labor Day's protest, where workers' unions joined university students in the nation's capital, Belgrade, to demand also changes in the labor and strike laws. Many Serbians blame government corruption, fueling negligence, and disrespect of safety regulations as the cause of the tragedy. On the other hand, President Alexander Vučić has organized parallel rallies to counter street demonstrations considered the biggest ever anti-government rallies in the country.
I am here today to support my students and to say that their requests have not been fulfilled. We are all waiting for the moment when the requests will be fulfilled, so we can go back to our classes.
I am here to give support to all citizens of Serbia in the fight for a better Serbia, in which our children will stay and live here, so that it never crosses their minds to run away from here because the people who are in power are incompetent and have no moral integrity.
The Speaker of the Kenyan Parliament, Moses Masika Wetangula, confirmed Wednesday the assassination of Charles Ongondo, lawmaker of the lower house in Nairobi capital. In this context, Wetangula regretted Ongondo's loss. Likewise, the leader assured that the murdered legislator had received threats to life, but he did not provide any further details. Meanwhile, security forces informed that the crime occurred at 7:30 p.m. local time and that witnesses had seen the perpetrator on a motorcycle. In view of the wave of violence, the legislature demanded authorities to open a fast and transparent investigation to bring all those involved to justice. At this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media: Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.